we've got the agenda, we've got minutes, the policies are all in order, and then we've got each of the organization's operations and accomplishments versus our goals for the year.
So I'll call the meeting to order at 9:14. Full business minutes from March 17th, 2022, a year ago.
Move approval of the minutes.
And I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor of approval of minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Minutes are approved. Good job on the minutes.
You're doing a great job.
New business, policy review.
So on an annual basis, the committee reviews each of our policies. You guys were emailed them ahead of time. I
Yes.
don't know if anybody had a chance to glance at them, but
Oh, yes.
I didn't notice significant change from last year's policies.
I don't think we made but a couple of adjustments, if any. Mentioned the investment report.
So there's,
Yeah, the only comment that I had when I was looking through that is that, with the exception of the code of ethics, you don't have the date of them last amended anywhere,
No,
either on the footer or in the header or.
mostly because of a lot of, historically, we've got PDF formats. George always liked us to recommend our changes to him. He would adjust, put it in a PDF, send out
And
the
then
legal
send
document.
it without the.
I think we've got things in Word document now that going forward, we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
note.
We did do it on the newest ones, the newest iteration of
Yeah.
the procurement
Yeah.
Meeting.
UTEP might say it.
Yeah, that's true, and now that I'm.
Some of them.
through, Some of them. do.
And some of them haven't been changed in so long, like,
I think our last time that we made some major changes might have been 2017.
yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Well, it's easy enough to, you can put a little
Yeah,
note on the PDF. that we made.
concur.
Just even handwritten so that when we photocopy them.
Yeah.
where do you get some of these? I don't know, do you want to go through each one?
However you would like to run
Yeah.
things. What were you gonna ask?
Well, I was just already moving on to the gift and entertainment policy. I noticed that there's a limit of $50. Any employee receives a gift greater than $50. I'm not sure where that came from. Because I believe ours is lower. Assuming I would have thought it would probably match.
I think there's something in the municipal law.
That's what I thought. I've been told 15, but
I can't remember, it seems like it was
No.
20, it was 25. It's gonna have something to say.
Yeah,
But I also
Yeah.
heard 75 jumps out at me as well.
George likes to talk about
sounds
that.
like they're always all over the place.
I mean, it's a practical matter. With inflation, $50 it once was.
Yeah.
But our chances visiting Friday, so we're keeping it to a dull roar of 15. You are naming a horse though, isn't you?
15 seems,
Chancellor's King.
chances like.
King is his last name. Very slick.
Very, very appropriate.
So,
15 doesn't seem, I've never heard 15.
okay. Well, it's a bottle of ketchup, basically.
Yeah.
Russ, I'll make it a point to look into the general municipal law.
You
And
could
I'll
ask
back.
the county to say that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, that's true.
That'll
Make it
be-
consistent with what our county does.
25 still jumps out at me, man. We used to go to conferences.
Mhm.
Companies used to organize events.
sure.
They used to do it, just one company to do it. Then they started, because of this law, the dollar amount, but they started doing it together so they could each give a certain
Yeah.
amount.
Like a basket.
And so they could each give, whatever it was, $25 each.
Yeah.
You could receive 25 for this one, you could receive 25 for this one, you could receive 25 for this one. Which meant that you could then play golf, say, with the three companies would put on a golf trip.
Yeah.
So there would be sufficient money for the golf.
Hmm.
Of course, but but you yourself are only receiving 25 for each company. So there were ways around it.
Unfortunately, I'm not giving that many gifts.
There wasn't a way around it. It was just, we're realizing that, they still wanted to do something, but there was a limit, and they were going to follow that limit.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people wanted to do, so.
I think the only examples we have would be House and Russ. Typically at our January meeting would take out their clients for dinner, but there would always be a business component to the dinner meeting.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think that's pretty typical. And I think the only fun activity we do is softball at Cooperstown when we have a conference at the Otissaga, but that's part of our registration cost through the state association. Besides that, I can't think of the last gift we received or gave.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
The last one we
talked
gave was
about the wine.
the recruit, yes, the
Yeah.
site selector who came
Yes.
out, and we did give him a case of
We're-
Madison County based.
This is received.
He was coming to the Finger Lakes with his wife
It does say.
on the side, and he
gift
didn't make it to the wine
policy,
country, so.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah,
So
no, I remember, and I thought that we
So
had.
cumulative annual value of all gifts an
Maybe
agency
that's
may
when
provide
they-
any one recipient is not exceed
and we
$250.
budget for it on the
So the
CRC.
most we can give is $250. You know,
Most we can give without asking for permission.
right.
And even on the gift policy, coming in, if it exceeds, then report it.
So I just don't know where that $25 thing came from, but we should probably follow the county, what that is.
Okay. I will look into it, and for Thursday's meeting, we'll make recommendations to the board, and
Okay.
we'll note that.
So I had a question about the investment policy,
Sure.
and it's only a general question, and nothing specific there. And it's only in light of, some recent bank failures. That,
Sure.
Where we hold our money and how protected is it, and how our policy, does our policy protect what we do? And,
We have,
if there was a bank failure of whatever bank we're in, I can't remember which one we're in, do we have more than 250,000, or are we able to have more? Do they?
we have the FDIC coverage, the CDs that we have purchased that exceed that. The bank buys additional insurance. That our CFO has been very conscientious of it, and Charlie noted it in our audit, that we are fully insured on our investment accounts. But I was hoping you were gonna ask that, Russ, that's, especially in light of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special time deposit on the first page of bottom.
Mhm.
C1, it talks about why that such deposit or certificate deposit is secured in the same manner as provided for security deposit agency funds. It's section 10(3) of general municipal law, and I assume that's probably the extra insurance or whatever. Maybe just check to see.
Yeah.
what Section 10(3) of general municipal law is.
I wonder if that insurance is going up now.
I think if they're gonna bail out all those
Yeah.
potential millions of dollars
Well,
in excess.
In theory, it came from rates that were provided by all the banks.
Yes,
That it
it's
was
that
sort of
FDIC where they're paying into.
Kind of self-insurance.
There's more than, there must be another fund, it's not only the FDIC,
Right.
because that was only up to 250,000.
Right.
But there are some, Roku, whatever they
Sure.
had, and they're 3 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would just check to make sure that we're doing whatever we're required to do. And I'm not proposing making changes, just to.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a good.
Yep.
Interesting to know what we pay for that extra insurance.
They probably, they just lower what they're gonna give us. We don't.
The way, when I inquired,
Instead of giving us 3%.
Right.
We give us 2.5%.
Yeah.
when I inquired and talked with our commercial banker at the Bank of Utica, his comment was the bank buys additional insurance to cover your amounts over that $250 limit. So it didn't sound like our average rate of return, didn't sound like it was being impacted. It's built into what rates they offer. It's the way that I understood it. But I'll look at GML 10.3 and get back to you.
How do we know that they're actually doing it? Do they give us some,
There's something in writing, Amanda?
Is that the third party collateral thing that we get over 250,000?
yes.
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We've got written documentation of that coverage.
We might add that to the, or investment policy that we maintain. And maybe it's already in here, just we have some.
Yeah, Charlie asks for that every year. We keep a file and
You know,
show.
members of the
Make
agency,
it
so we do the annual investment report, annual audit. So that's in our annual audit, the annual investment report.
As a matter of fact, Amanda, you've got an investment report you can hand out
Let's see.
or no? Okay.
We,
We've got something posted online that is our annual
Yeah,
investment
okay, yeah.
report. We'll have it for the board.
versus what the policy says with the all deposits, we typically just do the interest that we've earned through each account, so I didn't know what we were
We
going
can
to
give
do.
a full bit breakdown. I did it with our most recent laddering of CDs.
Yeah, it just gives the time for us to be able to look at it, everything, make sure that we're not,
We'll have that prepared for the full board meeting on Thursday.
which I won't be at.
Yes,
We'll email you a copy.
so it doesn't say governance, it just says the agency. Right, so,
So we recommend to the full board, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then they have to.
so we'll review that on Thursday. What else is there?
3 p.m.
Three,
Go around.
Thursday, it's the data provisions.
The only person that we've heard from was Russ, so we think that John and Rick and Steve will all be here. Liz, you're fine.
Yeah.
If you can't make it, we will have a forum. Yeah, it'll probably be the full 2 hours because it's the Paris report review, unless, of course, the committee can make it convincing. I always find the March meeting to be a bit painful. But we'll have Charlie here right at 3 o'clock to start the audit committee and review the audit, and we'll get that out to board members
got it?
maybe today.
Okay.
We do have a draft in hand.
Who's on the audit committee? Is it the finance people? It's Steve.
Steve, John, and Rick? I don't think Rick is.
We might be down to two now that we lost Chris Dugan.
John was on.
John, definitely John,
Yeah,
Steve.
John and Steve. Bob Ramignoli, when I talked with Jack Ramignoli last, he said Bob would probably love to serve. I reached out to him. He was interested. He wanted copies of the last couple of years worth of minutes and other things that he could review and get up to speed. I told him I would recommend his name to the full board. If the full board likes it, we'll take it to the county. And I said, you know, we've got a March meeting coming up. You're welcome to attend, but we won't be able to get you on probably until
I
2 days later.
did think of another, shouldn't hang. I was trying to remember his name on this once, but, you know, Steve Durkee. Big farmer on the other side of the,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so if this doesn't work out, you might at least look into that. Used to work with him a lot. He was very, well spoken, very thoughtful, very, but difficult to get to read sometimes because of his work. He's older now, so.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe his children.
Yeah.
Should I float both names?
Up to you. You might check with others about Steve. I don't, I assume he's still, it's that big farm on the north side of the village.
Yeah.
The Durkee farm, I'm not sure what the actual name is, but I don't know that, where the industrial development agency is. Make a difference in farmer as an industry, and certainly it's one of our biggest
Look at Dave
industries.
as one of our, key ag people, and Rick being a former farmer, but I don't think that it
You
would,
might check some names, hey, Rick would know.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's right.
I will do that. I'll talk with him prior to Thursday. But anything else that, for those of you that were able to review prior?
So likewise, because of inflation, it's been a few years to meet the procurement levels of verbal quotations or written quotations. Do those probably follow the county again?
I don't know, we've had our limits. 500 and below is fine to do without
Yeah,
chopping it around. We
right.
did make minor adjustments to that policy to allow for email solicitation. Amanda does most of the legwork, though I think I'm officially declared the head procurement person for the office. But I don't think Amanda, do you have any recommendations as far as changes based on inflation?
I mean, those are pretty,
It works for us. We
Yeah.
only bid a couple
Okay.
things every year anyway. And most of them work out to 2 and under, less than 3,000. I think.
And we only farm out, we consider CPA and legal to be professional services that we don't bid. And I guess, Mike Madison also as KJM. But we bid out lawn and snow plowing.
And then if we do something.
Right.
then we-
Conscientious of the fact that we gotta pay prevailing wage but no, I don't think we need to make any changes. Do you think?
I just wanted us to at least bring it up, and I think the ranges are probably still about right. I mean, inflation hasn't been that much to change these levels. Is there anything that says we're supposed, any of these policies that say, in procuring contracts, we have to be certain to pay prevailing area wages even for professional services? Is that true?
It varies by project and source of funding. The IDAs, so far as I know, are not automatically required to.
No.
And that is a criticism of IDAs, that they are not required to. It's also a criticism that they have to sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's ties our hands. But yeah, so, all right, just thought I'd ask.
No, that's good. That's why we review these on an annual basis. To have that consideration, at least have us thinking on those levels.
This is relevant, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We do the old computers, you just recycle them.
You going to storage up in the attic?
Kip won't let me throw anything away.
Johnny criticizes the same.
Oh, my home.
But you never know. I had my old,
I like my old laptop.
Yeah, I had for probably a few years after I got my latest new computer, I had it sitting under my desk with another screen that I could turn on if I needed to reference old files that I somehow didn't transfer, but.
We do have an upcoming trip to Lojo in our future, I think.
Yeah.
Recycling.
Lojo's very efficient over there.
Is there anything in the policy that says moving the stuff up to the attic?
It is safe storage.
So I serve on the Cornell Cooperative Extension and on the acquisition policy.
Mhm.
First of all, they didn't have one, so we had to create one. They didn't make it very explicit that the Cooperative Extension is not interested in taking on animal donations or any donation that's going to carry with it ongoing expenses. Because there was no exclusion in the policy. And
Somebody tried to give you an
yeah,
animal?
somebody absolutely tried to give, yeah. So we said, look, no animals, please.
Aw.
I mean, we at the Morrisville College Foundation accept animals as part of the foundation gifts, but it has to be determined by faculty. If it's kind of horse, for example.
Right.
So, yeah, so I don't think we.
If it's breeding worthy.
Yeah, or, whatever it is, teaching. But we needed to upgrade the disposition of animal policy because that's.
Speaking of Morrisville Foundation, we do have consideration at the board meeting for the adjustment. I think Chris has brought it up, the bonds for the commons bonds were based on the LIBOR rates, the fluctuation in the variable rate, and the LIBOR rate is going away. So there's a resolution to accept the different exchange rate, I don't know. But just a heads up that that's
Okay.
a very minor something the board will consider.
We just had a foundation board meeting, well, on travel policy, and does that require any update in terms of reimbursement?
No, we
We
made,
adopted the state, right?
we at one time had a fixed amount on reimbursement for mileage, and we simply made a very broad change, I think in 2017, that said we're gonna follow whatever the federal rate is, because sometimes there's a mid-year change. Yep. There's the recapture policy that was just prior. Give you a little update on our projects. Everything is moving along just fine. I'll give a report also at the board meeting, but all seasonings ingredients, for example, was to retain 60 jobs and add 10 new, so a total of 70. We're up to 80 at the moment. Business is booming. They're doing very well. Carriage House, again, just bonds. Has Hospitality, 27 jobs versus 22 that they had promised. Ones to point out, I guess, Dutchland Plastics here in Canastota, at 120 Barlow. They have sold. The new ownership is Tank Holding. Again, very large rotational mold holding tanks for water. They're used on ag facilities, and I assume oil and gas. But they anticipate increasing output and increasing their production capacity since they've been acquired. I don't recommend any changes in their pilot. Good Nature Brewing Company. Have we learned anything about the change of ownership there, besides the fact that Kerry Blackmore is no longer involved? They were taken over by private equity.
They're open and operating, they're active and doing pretty well.
Yep. I didn't know if their distribution, I need to reach out and have that discussion, but that's one that there has been a change of ownership, but they're continuing to manufacture or continue to operate within the community. I just didn't know if there was any talk or rumbling in the community.
No, it's the opposite, but they seem to be
Yep.
turning around, but
And their employment levels are at, they were to have 16 jobs or at 17. I took my kids out for a burger on Friday and everything seemed to be business as usual. EVAC is, I think, leasing employees, but they're they're at a level of 7 full-time. Myers Creek Brewing Company, again, seems to be doing fine as far as production. There are products out there.
Yeah, and they're also busy. Is there any implication about leasing versus hiring?
I've asked Chris about that
Yeah.
because they don't have an ST-45 to be able to prove to us their employment levels. They do have an equivalent document that they shared with me for my Paris reports. But I don't know if I know when it comes to the Department of Labor, there's a difference between trying to find financial resources when it's a leased employee. All Seasonings used to do, Briggs and Stratton used to do a lot of leased employees. Once people were around for 6 to 9 months, they'd bring them on as full-time, but think the paperwork of hiring somebody who only lasts a couple of weeks in a manufacturing setting is burdensome.
They have employees, is that the Myers Creek is?
No, it wasn't Myers Creek, it was the one
Oh,
before.
EBAC, Aurora Vineyards.
Oh,
They've just shifted over, so just the very end of 2022.
Okay.
But I don't think it's changed their operation at all. What I need to get clarification on is, does it matter to us?
what do you mean by leased employee?
They're not going through their own payroll. They're
Yeah.
hiring out a third party to do everything related to hiring those employees. They just lease them.
From whom?
From a employment agency.
Like Kelly,
Right, so they would get their W-2s not from Aurora, but from Kelly,
Right.
because that's who's doing their payroll. So I just don't know.
If it makes any difference.
That's probably a Chris post.
Yeah. So I've got the question out to Chris.
Okay,
I just need to get
where is
clarification.
like that?
yeah, I didn't know that until it picked as much as that.
Have they switched over, or are they still leased, or do you know?
As far as I know, they just started leasing employees. The reports that I
So
got
they went from
from
their own staff.
in-house to the leasing agency. I'll talk with Montante about it, Chris.
And they're doing okay?
I think so.
I don't know. I
They're
heard
pretty
that they
low
were-
key.
They've been very low key over the winter, but that's probably typical, right?
Yep. Yeah, their employment definitely comes down to a trickle.
Yeah.
It's mostly weddings. I don't think they have, I don't know. I know they were doing a lot of weddings.
I've been there, I guess I haven't been there recently, but on the weekend, and they, there's a waiting list to get in.
Wow, and a crowd, wow, okay.
But I wasn't there last year, the year before.
The only other one I would bring up is Hardin Plaza, the residential, the 28 units in Oneida. They've done 2/3 of their construction. They have not completed their full build out that they had anticipated. When they submitted their application, they said they were going to have 3 full-time employees. Obviously, a apartment building isn't a heavy employment. That wasn't our focus in incentivizing it. It was very much encouraged by Oneida Hospital, the city of Oneida. In talking with the owners, they said in reality, they will have one full-time employee. Said I wasn't sure if I should bring that up to the full board, if we should make an adjustment to our Paris report, or simply report what they have when the project is complete. It's always gonna have a shortfall problem. Most likely it's going to have a shortfall.
Right, but is that gonna subject them later on if we don't modify it to any kind of a clawback?
Again, when it comes to our clawback policy, our recapture policy, we can make exceptions. If someone's not living up to what they're making their capital investment, they're putting out a high quality product. I don't know.
And can we amend the report? Like
We can, I just have to reach out to the Office of the State Comptroller and ask the Paris specialist to crack open
Right,
and
how
put it at resubmit so that we can make adjustments.
to do it,
It's not an easy process, and it
yeah.
kind of raises a flag saying, hey, somebody's making a modification to their,
Yeah,
Yeah, but if you're trying to advance economic development and you have no place to put workers, then, yeah.
it was definitely a workforce housing
Absolutely,
issue.
yeah,
yeah.
With the flats losing nearly 100 homes in
yeah.
the city of Oneida. So I'll bring it up with Chris and the board on
I mean, it's
Thursday.
just like maybe you could just annotate,
Mhm.
capture that discussion of why this is still a really valuable project. Maybe if it's in our minutes and
Yeah.
we capture
Yeah.
it, then we don't have to, we'll have it on our record, and then we won't have to necessarily try to crack open the CRC reporting.
Yeah, I don't know,
But
we have,
again,
I don't know if we have to show where these residents like work, but it adds to the stock of housing.
Mhm.
And for work projects that are gonna be in the commuting area,
Mhm.
then it adds to the workforce.
Right, and I don't know, but I would assume that Oneida Healthcare, I would assume there's a lot of either doctors or nurses that either short-term or long-term have found Hardin as a place for. The Hardin, furniture, it was a lot of warehousing, but they did have sanding equipment and some vacuum systems. Yeah, it was an adaptive reuse of a vacant building for over a decade. Other projects, CPAC, which is CNC manufacturing at the Harbor Lights Business Park, they're doing great. Their employment levels are at where they said they would be. Superior Metals Manufacturing and Shipping. Yes, the former, what was Bob Holchansky's? Lakeside Innovative Technologies, was acquired by a company that's out of Binghamton, and they have a handful of CNC machine shops throughout New York State. They acquired it, they expanded, it was only a 7,000 square foot manufacturing facility. They expanded the footprint by 50%, and brought on another, they promised 7 new employees. Superior Metals, your CPP here in Chittenango, they've completed their construction. They've got their first smelter, they're planning to add a second, but they've completed their project from our perspective and are planning to grow. Green Empire Farms, 119 employees, which doesn't include their leased employees. If you remember at the start of COVID, they had an issue in which they had a Michigan firm that was bringing in 50, 80 employees, and they were bunking up at hotels and bringing them in. So they were housing them, feeding them, and then, but they're at 118. I think they promised, they're at 119. They promised 118 in a $74 million capital investment.
Weren't they gonna build their own housing?
They've got housing on site. They had to modify their housing design based on COVID. And instead of having one unit that housed 30 people, I think they've got upstairs, downstairs that houses 15 each. But yeah, they've got approval for up to 90 residential units, which is 120. But if you drive into their driveway, you will see the housing, the bunk houses on that left-hand side of your entrance.
Did they build the soccer field?
Yes, I remember them calling me and saying, how do we get our field lined? Like, where do we get it? I said, you might contact the school, but I have no guarantees. It's out of my wheelhouse.
I think that's the good nature rule is now 50%.
Yes,
Taxes.
correct. Their project was approved in 2016. So they're on their, right,
Yeah.
25, 50, 75, and then fully on board.
They didn't take advantage of that, the state program, which would allow them to have a more lucrative tax.
Correct. Empire was able to take advantage of that, which was 100% 10-year exemption. And Good Nature said, that would be great, but they thought we will contribute to the taxing entities, and as we build, or as we mature, we'll be able to pay more, and yes. And even Myers Creek, they wanted to come in and take over what Empire had done, and the board decided, we'll give you a modification, a 5-year benefit, and it'll help you.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing well.
Oh, I think that.
And they've made the investment. I'm still trying to finalize my construction file. They've got a new CFO coming in mid-month, where I think they'll be able to give me all of their documentation of construction that they've met their capital investments. Did you get enough language on Dr. Rogers was saying, so that we've got minutes to document the employment level?
Pardon?
Yeah,
Yeah,
great. As long as it's noted in the minutes, we'll bring it back up at the other board meeting.
So going back to what Liz said about putting in the minutes about the Hardin project.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a section in our recap policy about enforcement. And Section 3E, says should the board members of the agency find a significant deficiencies, achievement of described, appears to be no justification. Agency may determine that undertake, to undertakes.
Section 3, what, I'm sorry.
It's on page 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm reading E.
Okay.
There's a typo there as well. Seems to be address, and then F, it says enforcement action, and then G, it says the agency also reserves the right to waive the imposition of these
Yeah.
provisions.
Oh, okay, so
It seems like we should,
we have the flexibility we need.
but we should reference this in some way perhaps, and say that we reviewed it, there are, a redevelopment project, it's housing, they're at 2/3 instead of, they're not
Maybe
built out.
And they're not even out of compliance at the moment.
They're not,
They're,
something,
it was job creation after the completion of construction, which they're not done with their construction yet. But
so anyway.
that's the right place to reference.
should there be some language in there? I mean, good, it demonstrates that flexibility, but should there be some kind of general description of the conditions under which we might do that? Otherwise, it could be viewed as somewhat arbitrary. I mean, you don't want policies that are so directive that they dictate, you lose your flexibility. On the other hand, if it's like, so we have all of these conditions that warrant, clawback, but unless we decide otherwise, it's kind of like a pretty overarching, seems like there ought to be some language in there, G, that says,
Yeah, some kind of
Just
holistic evaluation of the value of the project to the community.
to the community or in support of broader economic development goals,
Right.
That kind of
Workforce
complementary
development,
to.
yeah.
I could see something that at least says it's a little stronger than, unless we don't want to.
Yeah, after consideration of the holistic impact
Yeah,
of the project on economic development, workforce
for the
housing,
community, yeah,
other community priorities.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
yeah,
Okay.
so something like that, yeah. And then, yeah, fairly general, but yet outline the conditions under which we have that, we can take that action. And then if we have to, for any particular project, we'll specify which of those broader categories apply. Meaning, just feel better if we do that.
Great.
What other, you see me working our way through.
Our uniform project benefits agreement is probably the biggest policy, but essentially this is where we get our clawback.
Right.
We get them, exhibit B is the description of the expected public benefits, which is your capital investment, your job creation, job retention. So we draw those things out, so we've got a clear line in the sand as to what's expected of them, of our clients. Our uniform tax exemption policy, our UTEP. We've had any change in this since we established it.
so this thing in Orange County, one of the main issues has to do with whether or not, whether or not the project would have gone forth without the benefit. Isn't that from
The but-for argument.
Is that where we're looking at this? Is that in there, or is there, do we address it in some manner?
We do address it. I mean, are usually the one who brings that up in meetings and considering, let me, try to scan this for.
I just can't remember how we.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think back to the Orange County example. It sounded like the applicant specifically stated in their application that we're gonna do this.
Regardless of what you get.
Yeah.
And typically you would have like the Barclay Damon type advice from attorneys on applicants. On the applications, it says, I apologize. But just something,
No. That's what the Barclay David people tell you. Like,
yes, they.
don't put that in your application.
They, what I typically see, even in state ESD applications, this project probably wouldn't go forward as quickly or as broad if there wasn't the assistance being requested.
Yeah.
It's the soft way of saying,
Yeah.
we might not.
And so it was like, so, maybe.
But there were bigger problems in Orange County before that. They're getting this hyper scrutiny because the executive director and the consultant, essentially the agency was giving multi-million-dollar business to a consultant who worked hand in hand with the executive director, and the executive director was also getting paid, and none of that was disclosed. And I think it was hemp farming in an old prison or something along those lines. But the executive director is no longer there, the consultant is no longer there, and they were essentially taken over by the county. And there is, Scoofus at the state legislature is targeting them and trying to impose regulations on all IDAs, such as the ABO gets to appoint 2 different members to serve co-equal of board members and can trump any decisions made by the agency. Which, as a state agency, we came out and said, we don't like this legislation, and just because you've got issue with Orange County does not mean that all IDAs have issues throughout the state. But obviously, we've got a conflict of interest policy, and I don't see anything, Russ. I don't recall anything specifically.
Is this where we would have uniform criteria for evaluation time?
Looks like that's where.
It's our uniform tax exemption policy, but I don't know if we've got the but for.
I'm not sure we need it for, but I just wondering, I want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we have.
What was it, going back to the shopping center outside Hamilton, where that town is?
Madison.
Yeah, there was the burden of proof was along to show, because it was a retail, that there would be substantive travel. And they showed some population centers, but, we got sort of sticky about the whole thing, and they got frustrated. But it wasn't, I do know that there was a conversation, there was a moment when I go, oh, okay, when one of their consultants said, well, we're gonna do this anyway. You go, okay, so why are we here? And we didn't have something to sort of back us up, but like, why are we gonna be so generous with public funds if you're gonna do this anyway?
And the board made the right decision.
I think
based on
so.
that comment.
Well, I think so.
There.
But we were, I don't know if we need to, but I think it made a difference in terms of the conversation at least.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's in the policy explicitly. I don't know that it needs to be, but, again, if somebody says, well, show me where this, where does it say in your policies that suddenly the tenor and tone of the decision changed? Because we were going to do it anyway. We just wanted to pocket some additional money. It's worth more to us if we get these perks. I mean,
In the village, in their part of their argument was the village isn't going to give us water and sewer because we're not in the village, therefore we don't have access to their public municipal services, therefore we need to drill wells and we need to do septic, and because of those additional costs.
right.
The board's decision was, no, you knew those costs were going to be because you aren't in the village and you shouldn't have access unless you can negotiate with
Plus, they're
municipality.
already partway down the road.
And if you had mentioned the study that we
Yeah.
had them,
Yeah.
because we can't do retail type
Right.
projects unless they're pulling a substantial amount, at least, I think it's 51%
Yeah, it
from
was-
outside of our economic region. And they were trying to make the argument that Oneida County and Otsego County
Yeah.
would be coming up to frequent their stores.
I don't know if that's happening or not, but
Yeah.
it wasn't compelling when they presented the evidence.
No, but they did go through the exercise.
Yeah.
They paid for the consultant and they
Yeah,
did
yeah.
for the study.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I point to that project often when I'm talking with prospects when they're seeking
Mhm.
assistance.
sure.
I can tell you that our board is not they're not a bunch of pushovers. There are examples of projects that we have not granted benefits to that have come to us, and I think that's a
Yeah.
good example. We held a public hearing in the town of Madison. We had an outcry from the population.
So apropos that example, do we need to have something in here that
So
it doesn't explicitly exist?
in this policy, respecting uniform criteria for evaluation of applications, right? Because it says in here, it has the, in section C, the criteria for commercial projects,
So
and it
maybe
does say sales
Yeah,
customers outside the county.
okay,
Alignment with local planning and development, promotes walkable community, blah, blah, blah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, we could
yeah,
put something in there that references the project would not proceed without, in the absence of benefits, project would not proceed.
so would you add that only for commercial projects or for others as well?
Or maybe it would be in the uniform criteria then.
These are all,
those are all,
Well, and at the beginning of section 2,
yeah, so
A.
A, B, and C.
So, yeah, you could put it in A.
So, but we wouldn't want to say that, that it's only, we would only approve it on
if
what.
and only, yeah, no, we don't,
Yeah.
I don't
I
want to
agree.
say that,
No,
but
So-
it is something we may want to take into consideration.
yeah.
But to,
You could just say extent to which project would likely proceed in the absence of,
yeah, something like that speaks to,
because then it doesn't give a threshold, it doesn't say.
Yeah.
If-
but then it almost, it doesn't have a lot of teeth other than not putting it in. In other words, I don't know, I'm trying to wrestle with whether we need to do it or not.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm not sure that we have enough information about the effect of what if we put it in.
We don't want to put something in that's going to have a chilling effect, so much so that we don't get
Or,
business.
that's right, or it's going to make it say no to everything, because,
Right,
Right,
yeah, that's,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, then it's not really policy,
so,
then it becomes,
Right, because then you don't have deep pocket people
right.
coming
right.
to you who are 90% sure that they want to go ahead.
The developers of that shopping center, are they still doing projects, do you know? Because they vowed never to. They were gonna get out of the
Knock on your door
business.
again. No.
Well, they had paved their driveway and put up steel girders for construction, like,
Yeah.
it seems like their project's
Yeah,
a third of the way.
yeah, they were pretty angry.
it seems to me we should leave it like it is now.
Okay.
You should talk to someone
Pose the question to Chris. Should it be just in our application? Should it be in our policy?
or
How
to
should
some of
we
your,
Orange County.
your
counterpart?
counterparts to
Yeah.
see whether.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it
look
can
at
really
their
be chilly.
policy.
It's important, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you, yeah. Mhm.
I just wonder if that group would come back and say, show me in your policy where it says that, we've already started. And I don't know if that, you have to be careful about the phrasing of the language. So
Yeah.
you need to ask, check with somebody else. But
They were also, another issue had to do with, tractor supply.
Yeah. right,
And the grocery store, there were both in effect, I mean, there were other entities that we gave it to them,
right.
it was gonna speed the potential demise of the others.
Yeah, 3 miles away. Yeah.
Well, it was Wayne's Market with the price chopper coming in, right?
Grand Union.
Or Grand Union.
Grand Union.
It was
They went
just
on
a
to
mile away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they've been good, loyal community customers for a long time, paying taxes. I think we want to be known as the fair but firm.
Yeah.
Um,
So, this policy is entitled Policy Respecting Criteria for the Evaluation of Applications. Under table of contents there, we have evaluation of projects policy. So that actually to the projects versus the application in my mind applies to different things.
I put together this, so
So
it's a clerical error, it's definitely
this
not.
doesn't mean projects. I mean,
No.
it's
Of the project,
applications.
it's applications,
Okay.
okay.
Sorry.
That's all me.
Sorry, picky there.
Kip heroically made the photocopies while I was absent.
And then the whistleblower policy, I think Sam Lansafan was the last one to make a recommended change there, and that was that any staff can go to board members instead of going to me if they've got issues.
Right. Even then, the protection.
Right.
how's it going on all that?
Better.
Yeah, there's a story there somewhere.
I'm a mean boss.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yeah. We see it.
Mostly leading up to board days. Definitely have last minute changes and adjustments, and I stress things out more than I should. Are we comfortable?
So knowing that Amanda is now protected by affirming the whistleblower, any other discussions or questions? Kip's been taking notes about the possible changes we want to consider. Do we just recommend to the board on Thursday that, what's the next?
If you would like to turn things over, I can try to give a summary, a few bullet points of things that were discussed, but typically, Russ, you came up with very good language, and I cut and pasted it from past minutes, and it was along the lines of the slate of policies we recommend to the full board for reapproval, which.
Well,
He won't be here on Thursday.
yeah, it's
but,
now institutionalized as the Russ approval process.
But it was very broad, but simple statement that we did take the time to review each policy and that we recommend the slate for reapproval.
And
Noting some minor changes.
Sure.
yeah. From your perspective, is there anything that you wish that we could revise or kind of tweak in any of these policies? You haven't run into any kind of roadblocks over the years, so.
No, I think it's pretty cut and dry. And I think the fact that Hodgson Russ, when something comes up with one agency, they'll reach out to their other clients.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one thing that you might have, I only printed one copy. There was a exhibit A on our agency meeting policy, what we had printed out, but exhibit A simply says what public hearings people should have up to 3 minutes and not extend more than 20 minutes per meeting for a public comment period. It was not included in your original packet. We probably ought to have on our agenda soon after the Rogers report any public comments, but there's a policy in place on how we would accept public comments. And Rick, I think, has always just run it as he would do at a town board meeting or at the Board of Supervisors, which is, again, a pretty cut and dry prescribed process for public hearings. But no, Liz, getting back to your question, I have not come across anything, and if I did, I would have brought it up or
Well,
whatever
I
we
figured
discussed.
that. And as you were going through the list of everybody's status too, it probably would have come up in that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Good.
Keep up with
You
the work.
follow the city of Saratoga's council meetings and
No.
public comment periods and so on.
What? What's happening in Saratoga?
I listen to NPR, WAMC.
Uh-huh.
All numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always news about city of Saratoga. They are really in turmoil. A number of things, but this is one of them about
Oh, the meeting.
comment period, and who can speak and how long,
Hmm.
and whether they can leave, whether public comment sessions going on, whether they should be limited.
You get NPR's, the feed from Saratoga, or do you do that online?
No, from Albany.
From Albany?
WAMC's from Albany. I get WRVO, it's my local.
Yeah, I do too, but I get the, I can also.
89.9 and 88.3 are the two that I can get. And the 88.3 is good because that's out of the new house in Syracuse, and they'll do the basketball or football games on the radio.
90.3 is WAMC.
I don't think I can pick up 90.3.
It's not, they have a repeater tower, what do they call it, in Madison.
Oh.
Booster. But yeah, so, they have.
But it's not IEA, it's the town or the city.
It's just the issue of something with the IDA.
Okay.
The only community I work with that has really, like, very structured public comment period is Ithaca. You know, the rules are posted in the room, you go in, you sign up, you have a certain time. There's rules of decorum, which
Yep.
are,
Which are addressed in ours too.
oh, yeah.
I think the county is pretty good about it. They've always got a sign-in sheet. Very rarely does somebody come in and have a public comment or a gripe.
Yeah.
Maybe in your day, a guy from Oneida, the two brothers, they had an issue and they were coming every meeting to have they had a public comment.
Why do I not?
Oh,
You don't wander when
they
they
go.
Because you don't, right?
Yeah.
You know, there were only two colleges that made it to the NCAA March Madness locally. Colgate,
And Morris.
just saying.
Madison County rules.
Our women's,
Men's basketball and women's hockey, right? Didn't they have a good run this year at Colgate?
And men's hockey too.
Men's hockey too?
they lost to Wisconsin.
No, it's the Michigan one.
Michigan it was, yeah. I saw some of that.
It
It was not that close. It happens. Well, we lost to Smith. We scored our usual 50, which was pretty good, considering they were the top seed. But they managed to eke out a 50-point win against us. They were pretty good. They didn't win.
What do we do
They didn't win
first?
it all, but they made it.
Was it the,
IDA.
was it the arborist?
Last year's accomplishments?
Was it the arborist in, Oneida who's the person I'm trying to think of? Can't remember his name.
No,
He was-
Bartlett. Is that the arborist?
Oh, yeah. Partly.
No,
No,
that's not who I'm thinking. The brothers, Kinsella. Maybe it was after your
Yeah.
time.
no, it was a quarry thing, right?
There was an issue and
Yeah.
they came and
Yeah,
talked.
yeah,
Oh,
And
I
every
know
single
it
board
did.
supervisor
It had to do with, it was after me, but it had to do with the water tower.
Yeah. That was different yet. That was Al Sales City's block. The water tower at the
That
landfill.
wasn't Kinsella.
No.
It was living across the valley.
No, that was Al
Oh,
Sales block.
yeah, I remember him.
Yeah. He was colorful.
Yeah.
He was one that you needed decorum on your public comment period. Scott Ingmeyer and I got beat up pretty bad by him and other folks at the town of Lincoln over what he was spreading as what he thought, his perception versus.
Reality.
I was here with the loss of value for each property because you could see that.
Yeah, there was a town council member also, and the lawyer had to step in and say, you just disclosed your own conflict of interest, and you've got a financial stake in this, therefore you should be abstaining from recusing yourself from any further discussion.
I saw the other day, it was, the election results from Madison County, or Wampsville. Marsha Rafty was elected to those.
Sorry.
They moved from the flats.
And
I
they must
ran
have moved.
into Marcia not long
They must
ago.
have, is Jim still alive?
No, Jim passed away 3 years ago.
So they must have moved to
Wampsville.
and Martin says Marsha Rafty, and I don't, maybe she's been
She's
on.
mayor?
No, on the
Village council. Okay.
Maybe she had been previously, I just saw the results and I saw Marsha Rafty from Wampsville.
Huh.
Wow.
All right, what we have in front of you is the operations and accomplishments for the IDA. So our mission statement at the top, our accomplishments being the Hardin Plaza project, 3.8 million capital investment, 28 residential units. As I said, they're still working on phase 3. The Kaz Barnes project we gave final approval for. We just signed the sales tax exemption and mortgage recording tax benefits. We close on that project, or we're about to close on it. They've kind of given us the green light, like it's time for us to advance this project. SDK Electronics, Pelco, Community Development Block Grant. I don't typically mention those because it's not coming through the agency, but we're a big advocate for that, much as Merlin is the new company. Thermold Corporation here in Canastota for the town of Lenox. But we try to provide guidance on community development block grants, but we don't do that in-house.
SDK Electronics is their home.
No, that's Pelco. Peter Kip,
Yeah, SDK Electronics is
I
helpful.
think that's the name that we've, yeah.
Peter's Electric. Right?
Yep.
So I put that before,
Yeah,
the two Peters.
right,
Yeah.
right.
CARES Act funding, again, the county secured $1 million, between 25 and 75,000 in grants to small businesses that were impacted by
Who's running?
by COVID. Scott Ingmeyer at the planning department.
Are they getting the applications?
The applications are due like Tuesday of next week. It's been like a 2-week window. They had put out, he and Jamie have done a great job. They put out a survey and I think they got 99 responses of people. 90% of them would qualify for funding. I asked tourism to kick out another email to their constituents just because a lot of them were restaurants and others that the kind of retail that wouldn't typically receive funding. So, you know, part of the county's request to the state was, yes, we can get this money out into people's hands and make a real impact. It's actually going through Sickerman Studios, Harry's group. They put the applications together. They've got to review criteria and ultimate decisions will be made at the county level, but.
So that's pretty sophisticated.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah. And I talked a bit about the DRI. That was a pretty big investment of our time and will be ongoing. And I anticipate, just because I'm the only, well, Dave, have you been asked to potentially serve on Hamilton's New York Forward DRI committee?
No.
The mayor sent me a note and
Yeah,
said, thank you for your willingness to co-chair that with me.
You're co-chair.
I think so.
Oh, you say they told you? They told us you were.
Okay. Department of State?
They're the ones who are.
At the announcement, we were going back and forth a little bit. I have not received anything formal, but typically they want a Red Sea board member to serve on the DRI within their communities.
There was a video Zoom conference meeting anyway, and it's pretty clear that they're the ones who was saying all they wanted was a list of people, and they had already identified.
The LPC, Local Planning Committee. Yep.
They told us that you were going to be the joint directors.
I haven't seen a formal letter, but I'm sure we've communicated with the Department of State about that.
And they didn't want us to talk to anybody. They asked them if they wanted to, or let them know that they were being considered. Their planning group would take care of all that.
Do we know who the engineer is? the planning. The one from NIDA was the Cameron Group out of Long Island. And I think our local planning group was kind of hoping to have somebody who was relatively local that would better understand the community, but it's a very prescribed system that the state has, the different state agencies that are going to provide funding.
And there was no, it's pretty clear that they did not want the PCB to be involved as an organization.
Huh.
Not to say that Jocelyn,
She'll have a seat on the local planning committee most
they
likely.
expect to be in the local planning committee, but not let the PCB organize events or meetings.
Right. They were hoping to be that engineering group that would help to facilitate it. So I anticipate that's part of our goals for next year is focusing in on the New York Forward in the village of Hamilton.
I had asked Scott Freemeyer how that was going. He said he was sure that I knew more about it than he did. Because they had excluded, he said, the planning department completely. And they were instrumental in putting together the application, right? So, like you said, it was prescribed how to do it.
So in reviewing, anybody have any questions or comments about the accomplishments for 2022? And these were emailed to you ahead of time. I'm not sure you had a chance to go over them.
So did you go to national meetings? You said the IDA promoting that's kind of business at the national level.
Working with Empire State Development, CNY Regional Planning and Development, and others, working with, talking with individual companies on business recruitment, marketing our sites and buildings. But I did not attend any trade shows at a national level. I have been, there's been talk about trying to get out to some of these chip fab type conferences, Semicon West, and I have not committed to any of that. Usually it takes a pretty big contribution from our organization to participate in those trade missions or over there couched. Yeah. But yeah, when I mentioned marketing on a national basis, it's the site selection process, and we see site criteria and we submit responses to their RFPs.
So when I read this, I read it that you were actually going to meetings, or, national meetings, so.
You buy airtime or advertising?
I do not. We get solicited often, and I always explain that our business development budget for a very rural community is not justified. The last time we did it, I think, was associated with the aerospace industry, as Griffiths was, focusing more on the unmanned aerial, we call them drones. But we were consistent for a few years with that and haven't been since. We didn't get any bites from it specifically.
Was it USA Today at that one time, or I think that was the landfill?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It was.
So I had some
Recommendation.
recommendation how to rewrite that. Maybe it makes a difference. No one else read it the way I read it, but the idea of promoting Madison County's business parks to local and national level businesses. Which
Just have a meeting with those guys.
Which sounds like
Yeah.
is what you
come
did,
here.
that you promoted it to those different businesses, but not, you weren't at something.
Yeah, they come here and we,
Yes,
yeah.
that was.
They're national in scope. We don't send you out.
Yeah,
to
no,
LA.
I think that's
Yeah.
a good clarifying.
We'll note that.
So did you, just looking back over last year, did you have a lot of site selection consultants knocking on the door?
We fielded well over a dozen leads is the way that I phrased it here. And I would say that there is an uptick in leads. The unfortunate part of the requests that have been coming now is typically 50 to 100 or several 100,000 square feet of existing buildings we just had no one. One of the bigger things that Dave Botar and I are working with, and we're gonna sit down with Scott Meyer, is trying to identify a bare minimum, 50 to 100 acres, but 50 minimum for suppliers to Micron. Where can we assemble land where it's potentially in close proximity to infrastructure that might be attractive as this industry is gonna, Harbor Lights, you should see the infiltration of wetlands. The delineation report, we can hardly carve out 10 acres. And John is really dead set on senior housing and other housing uses for that business.
So they just let it expand, it wasn't expanding, because what wasn't that before?
It wasn't as bad if you're looking at it. You've got the 40 acres that was pre-developed and the other, that land kind of right dead center. And then even what has been pre-developed, it's crept up here, and then the waterways of the US, so the ditches that they have are saying that